Hélder is in Enfield on the questions of NATO and possible resistance of a Greenland grab. Hélder, what would you like to say?
Unfortunately, James, I don't know if you remember me, we spoke a couple of years ago, but I am personally a former NATO soldier that actually served on the front lines.
I do remember now. I didn't at first, forgive me. I take quite a lot of phone calls, Hélder, but I remember now you've provided a bit of context. Carry on.
Unfortunately, it saddens me to say that we're asking the wrong question. It's not if NATO has failed. NATO has already failed. It's finished. It's dead.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that it? I mean, are you going to hang up now, Hélder?
No.
Go on.
No. I'll explain, James.
Yes.
If you're inside a NATO base, okay, well, once upon a time when I served, you'd go to the mess hall and you'd have Americans, Brits, Belgians, Dutch, Portuguese, Italians, okay, and we were all in the same mess hall, sharing the same meal and sharing experiences. It's quite common to have a table with two Brits, an American, an Italian, and a Portuguese, all sharing anecdotes and stories. That was the basis of NATO.
Of course.
The moment Trump said we need Greenland, not we would like to, we would want to, the moment he said we need Greenland, NATO is dead. Think of a mess hall, think of an officer's mess in a NATO base right now. You have American officers getting orders from back home. You have Danish officers getting orders from back home. You have British and French officers looking at both sides thinking, what do we do?
Wow. And you arrived at this conclusion back then, I presume. You didn't need to wait until Venezuela or until the hardening of resolve or the strengthening of rhetoric.
No, James. 2 years ago, May 24, the first time we spoke, we discussed how both Trump and Brexit were two pincers of the same movement. Fracture Europe, weaken it, and then all bets are off. And unfortunately, I will give you another prognostic for the next year, okay?
Yeah.
America grabs Greenland, Putin goes into the Baltic states, and a little detail that's went unmissed. Overnight, China has issued an ultimatum to the United States, release Maduro, get out of Venezuela, or else. While we're all busy with Greenland and the Baltics, China grabs Taiwan, and then who knows what comes next? Unfortunately, James, I think we are in a position now where we are in Britain end of 38 and during 39. Rearm, rearm, rearm. And I'll go one further. It's going to fall to Britain, France, and Germany to arm the Poles to the absolute back teeth, because when the time comes, it will be them that will get us out of this.
They'll be first in the firing line, so to speak. I think that the thing that I missed, and I forget whether we discussed this on May the 24th, but the thing that perhaps I missed was the motivation. Because I can understand Xi Jinping's motivation with regard to Taiwan, Vladimir Putin's motivation with regard to Ukraine. I don't know whether I felt that we were somehow inhabitants of a different moral or intellectual universe in the West. But I didn't understand why Trump would want to be part of that. And then a year later, in May of 2025, I read Noah Yuval Harari's piece about a world of fortresses. And if you listen to Stephen Miller's comments a moment ago, that is what they want. This is Orwell as well, isn't it? Orwell got it. This is what they want. You can't have the kind of power that Trump and his cronies crave without recognizing that there'll be other poles of comparable power elsewhere in the world. You will just have your half or your third. You will have, and they've started using the language of the Western Hemisphere. You will have the Western Hemisphere. Putin can have the Eastern Hemisphere, or Putin and Xi Jinping can share out what's... I mean, this sounds insane, though, still, Hélder, doesn't it? To you? A little bit?
You say it does, James.
I know I do.
But there's another small component that we're not talking about here, okay? And we should. A week ago, we were in a position where Donald Trump was immensely under pressure over the Epstein files, and he was also staring the face of a huge, huge defeat in the American midterms. What are we talking about today, James?
I'm never 100%, because I can hold two thoughts in my head at the same time. We referenced Epstein quite a lot yesterday, and we'll continue to do so. But in terms of what is currently most important, the timing of the Venezuelan move may have something to do with what you described, but the desire runs much, much deeper than Jeffrey Epstein or any of the concerns about what are in the still unpublished papers. You know that, and I know that. The designs upon Greenland haven't come about as a consequence of trying to distract from Epstein. So
No.
I'm always sympathetic to the dead cat theory, but I think sometimes we possibly put too much weight on it. It's more about timing than substance, the dead cat here.
You are spot on, James.
Thank
It's
you.
all about timing, okay?
Yes.
Now, picture this possible scenario, okay, which in my head is exactly what's going to happen. Trump goes into the midterms as the conqueror of Greenland. And he turns it from a massive loss, getting impeached and put into prison, to going down in his head as the president that expanded the United States. And you know what, James?
Go on.
I think it will work.
Well, I don't have a clue whether it... I just can't... I don't know, really, what the average... There's no such thing as an average American, as we know. There's probably no such thing as an average Brit, to be honest, or even an average resident of Enfield, Hélder. But, Americans... how many Americans could even find Greenland on a map?
Exactly the point. They can't find it on the map, but it's another victory, another military victory. And James...
And they'll dress it
if
up
a year
as
ago-
that. Well, you really think so? This is the only bit, and you're going to ring me again in 2 years and just go very politely, you see, James, I've warned you. But the average American doesn't want to have any military tension or war with Europe. Oh, no.
They don't care, James.
No, they do. That's why they've been pretending that we've got all sorts of problems with Muslims and immigrants and Sadiq Khan in London and all of the rest of it, designed to portray Europe as being in need of American intervention or American help, with Lord Haw-Haws and Lady Haw-Haws from Farage to little Tommy Ten Names all joining in, portraying their own country as something in a state of peril or something in a state of disarray or chaos, when obviously
Correct,
the opposite
James.
is true.
And if you add the support that they're putting behind reform in this country, the AfD in Germany, and all sorts of populist, right-wing, far-right parties across Europe, they have been putting us in this position on purpose. And we're coming to the end game. Now, the question is, what do we do about this?
Go on, then. We're late for the news, but I think I'm going to pause.
We have to start rearming.
So this is when we're
war.
back to 38, 39. And Germany kind of have, but they were looking towards Ukraine.
Yes.
So, look, briefly, the prospect of a front on what... And you've been to fronts, I have not, and almost certainly never will. But realistically, the prospect of a front where one side is waving the Star-Spangled Banner and the other side is waving the flag of Europe or European countries or the European Union or a sort of filleted NATO. Really? Can you see that happening?
It's happened. It's not that I can see it. It's already happened. You have a polarized world where you have the United States...
Yeah, it's happening metaphorically. It's not happening on a battlefield.
Not yet.
But can you...
Not
So
yet.
you're answering your question. You're saying, yes, of course I can envision that. And just
It's
listen to Stephen Miller and tell me how concerned he is about the prospect of United States forces lining up on the opposite side of a battlefield to European forces. And the stuff about Farage and the rest of them, and those dreadful people on GB News constantly denigrating the United Kingdom, constantly denigrating London, isn't so much about their idiocy and treachery. It's about what it tells the American people. So again, no tinfoil hats needed. But if you've been confused by that, why so many Americans, even the guy that founded, even Jimmy Wales was telling me, the guy that founded Wikipedia, about his American friends, like high-powered, super influential, informed, highly educated people who were buying this nonsense propaganda about Europe not being safe, about London not being safe. That is a narrative that has come off social media. And, why are they doing that, we asked a few times last year. Answer, because the American people need to believe that Europe is in danger or under threat in order to... it's still not there, personally, but it does feel like the jigsaw pieces are on the table. We're just perhaps not putting them yet in quite the right places. But Hélder, I think we might have had the 10 best calls of 2026, and it's only the second show of the year. So in fact, it's only the end of the fourth hour of the year. And if we carry on taking calls of this calibre for the rest of 2026, then I'll probably retire at the end of it. Tom's in Maidstone. Tom, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello, Tom.
I've been listening to the conversation this morning, and Miller's wrong. Miller is basically a mouthpiece, for a far right, out of control organisation, which is thinking it can do anything it damn well pleases. Now, we don't necessarily have to go and fight the United States, but we have to show sufficient resolve. Greenland is effectively a European country, as you've said, and it is a country which basically we could send troops to and establish a base on at the invitation of the Danish government, along with all of the other European members of NATO, and it would provide a deterrence. If nothing else, it would pause the Americans to think, well, actually, is this a step which we really want to take? How would this look with our domestic audience if we then start having a fight with the European partners of NATO?
I don't know when we'll turn our attention to the domestic audience, probably sooner rather than later. It's hard to talk about them in a homogenous way, but do they care about any of this? That's the bit I don't fully understand. The Venezuelan stuff, I mean, this is partly the benefit of having almost total control of US media now, isn't it? But the Venezuelan stuff, I can just about see how the average American might be persuaded to believe that they've done it for bona fide reasons. Just don't mention the Honduran president that got a pardon, or the thousands of people, including drug dealers, that Donald Trump has pardoned as president. Don't mention any of that. We look good, we're being strong. I don't even know. I can't finish this sentence. Is the domestic audience buying this narrative over Venezuela? Do we even know?
I don't know.
No, nor do I.
So
God knows what Greenland. What do you do? What do you say to Joe Schmo on Fifth Avenue about why we're going into Greenland and upsetting all our European allies and essentially destroying NATO?
Well, this is the $64,000 question. I mean, the point is, Trump is thinking about this as a land grab. Yes, Greenland's going to become a very strategic place in the years to come, particularly with global warming, because it's going to open up routes, the Northwest Passage and routes, shortening routes between the Pacific and the Atlantic. But the point is that they
have to do something with physical. They have to do something physical. I've got a statement a couple of minutes old that I'm going to share when I finish talking to you, which is from various presidents and prime ministers, chancellors of all the countries you'd hope for and expect. But they are mere words. They are words. And your argument very much is that we need actions.
Yes, and it's a meaningful deterrence. At the end of the day, one stop short of war is deterrence. And this is really this is something which Trump will have to consider. And in fairness, I think, if you show up sufficient resolve against him, he will back down, because he doesn't actually want to fight. He's promised his people, his MAGA audience, that they're not going to have
no more forever wars, and he's supposed to. I mean, some of the comment pieces the Telegraph published about how he's a pacifist and how he hates violence and how liberals can't get their head around the idea that Donald Trump is going to be a force for peace. It's quite extraordinary to think that they'll still get paid, but that feels, I don't know, that feels like last year's conversation. So it would involve the countries that I'm about to list doing something rather than simply saying what they have said in the last 2 minutes. Thank you, Tom. John's in Chelsea. Sorry, John. I went off on an unexpected tangent. What would you like to say?
Good morning, James. I'm not living in Chelsea, actually. I'm just driving through it. But anyway, my point is that I'm involved in oil and gas and mining my entire career. I'm currently on the board of a company that is investing in Greenland.
Okay.
And what I find odd about this whole situation is it's illogical. Is that if America wants strategic minerals in Greenland, its companies can go in there and apply for licenses and do the mining. There's nothing stopping them. The fact of the matter is that very few companies are actually looking at Greenland for these things because it's difficult. Climate change has helped it a little bit, but actually access and so on is still only part of a year. A lot of stuff is still covered by ice, and developing a mine, rare earths, geothermal, oil and gas takes years and years and years. As I said, the economic terms are very good, so the rent that any profit is made is split between the contractor who does the work and the government. Is very generous towards the contractor compared to many other places in the world. So there's nothing stopping American companies piling in there, taking up all the licenses and getting whatever they want. But the fact is, very few of them have. America doesn't have a national mining company that will go in and, rape, the resources if that's what it wants. So I just don't see the logic. And also they have a base there in Thule, up in the northwest of Greenland, which they've had for decades. They can put more people there if they want, and that surely would be a deterrent to any Russians or Chinese floating around the outside. So that they've
elected in recent years to reduce the Pituffik base, isn't it? I think that down from 6,000. Down to about 150 at the moment. But are we not falling into the trap of looking for logic here? Because as I understand it,
probably.
I think the Financial Times had an article today or yesterday about how getting the, quotes, oil, end quotes, out of Venezuela is going to be a very, very, very different project or prospect from anything that Trump understands. So I don't know whether or not the people around him want this kind of Western Hemisphere fortress. They're not really interested in the detail of what's deliverable, but the way you get Trump on board is by promising him baubles and prizes and shiny gold telephones. And that is what they've done. They say, hey, Venezuela's full of oil, Mr. President. We really need to take out the president. Okay, let's do it, says Trump. And, oh, by the way, Greenland is full of minerals, and we really need those minerals. Okay, let's do it. So there could be two ambitions here, one illogical and one horribly logical.
Yeah, and I'm a very logical person, so my blood pressure was going up and up, and as I was listening to your program, so I felt I had to make that.
No, I buy it 100%. The idea that it's going to be a hell of a lot more complicated than just turning up with a shovel or a few JCBs and shipping home all of these rare earth minerals. In the same way that Venezuelan oil is notoriously difficult to harvest.
It's heavy. It's heavy, difficult stuff to extract. But, the Greenlandic people have not had a very good ride over the decades with Denmark as a nation. I lived in Denmark for 5 years, and I could sense and feel the racism towards Greenlandic people.
Really?
It's palpable. Not everybody, of course, but old school Danes and so on have a very peculiar relationship with Denmark. And one person I remember saying Greenland, all it's good for is sending tax revenues in Carlsberg.
So it could, a little bit like England's historic relationship with Ireland, maybe, that they just sort of look to sconce over the sea, not the sea in this case, but
a bit like that.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know that.
The Greenlandic people, if they get benevolent companies or nations going towards them saying, hey guys, we'd love to do more with you, we'll put in infrastructure, we'll help you have schools, whatever it is, they would probably be welcomed with open arms. And the conditions are there for anyone to go and do that, but very few companies
within the context of international law and treaties and borders. And that's a brilliant addition to our confusion, I suppose, in the idea that it doesn't decrease the likelihood of them trying to do to Greenland what they've done to Venezuela in different ways, but it does, of course, pose the question of whether or not 6 months, 2 years down the line, the action is going to have delivered any of the rewards and consequences that they undertook it on the promise of.
Yeah, and then I'm Icelandic by birth, and I live between the two countries. My name is actually Jon, but not John. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Actually, it does. Next time you ring in, I will call you Jon.
Thank you. And then us in Iceland, we look at this and thinking, Jesus, are we next?
Yeah, well, I'd like the wry chuckle there, but Iceland's not alone. And that's the point, isn't it? That's the question that Stephen Miller unintentionally poses when he says nobody's going to defend Greenland militarily, because I immediately start wondering, okay, well, who would we defend? Where would we defend militarily if American aggression were to move on to that next? And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think you do either.
No, I don't. The only other point I'd like to make is Trump is serving a term, unless he changes the Constitution and he's going to be king or whatever, is the next president, Republican or Democrat, going to look back on these 3 years and say, I'm terribly sorry, Europe, you can have Greenland back, and undo some of this stuff?
I think there'll be a lot of undoing if a Democrat gets in, but that presumes A, that a Democrat will, B, that there'll be elections, and C, that Trump will quit the field. Of course, there's always a possibility that he would be replaced by J.D. Vance, who seems to be a sort of even more ridiculous figure, but arguably a brighter button, and equally committed to this Western Hemisphere domination. Well, what is it? Thank you, Johan. I really appreciate that, and it is yet more evidence of the power of contributions from people who've got intellectual or experiential investment in the issues that we're talking about, literally on the ground, exploring Greenland, and therefore fully across the likelihood of the ease with which these valuable minerals could be extracted.